Peace of mind is a priceless gift, yet so many of us avoid planning for the end of our lives for obvious reasons. But once you address it, the peace of mind it brings is there for you and for the people you love, which once again is priceless. Nancy Cogar is an elder law attorney here in Chattanooga, and she says she cannot stress enough the importance of planning ahead, and she joins us this morning. Good to see you.
Nice to see you, and thanks for having me back.
I mean, it is kind of an obvious 2 + 2 is 4. None of us really wants to talk about it, but we should.
Well, you know, no one wants to talk about death and dying, but we're not getting out of here alive unless something supernatural happens. So, but it is so important, as you said, Julie, because if you don't do these things now, then if you are in a circumstance like that, you don't have someone authorized to make those decisions for you, and they don't know what the decisions are. So,
okay, I like that you used the word now, because I was going to ask you at what age should someone do it?
Now.
And the answer is now. So
Now.
if you're watching and you're 32, now. If you're 82, now.
Right, because an important aspect of this is you have to be competent to make these decisions. You know, the default is if you are not competent, you wait too long. A lot of times we see people, the only option they have is a conservatorship.
So I think word choice is really strong. So you use a phrase, advanced directives. That means just what it implies. You're letting people know in advance what it is that you want. Is that right?
Right. So if you are at the end of your life, or you have an illness where there's no reasonable prognosis of you recovering, say you're in a car accident and you're in a coma and you know there's no reasonable prognosis of you recovering. I hate that for anyone, but there needs to be some decision about how you want your treatment handled, because the default will be the hospital will keep you hooked up to everything to keep you alive.
Can you be as specific in that as you wish, Nancy?
Yes.
Can you say, okay, you know what, give me 6 months, and if there's still no change, then?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, you can give your healthcare agent discretion, and so, but you have to do it.
Okay.
So that's the big difference. And you know, this is something that, you know, when I do estate planning with folks, it causes the most heartburn because people don't want to make these decisions. The opposite is true, that if you don't, you see all these legal cases where one family member feels one way, the other feels another, and you may just languish for years.
When you talk about planning for the health emergencies, and just by that word, it means it's not expected, it hits. That's a hard one to plan for some people. So do you, as part of your counseling, talk to them about think about this, and you guide them?
I do, and even with young people, you know, you've got young children. What are you going to do if something happens that you don't expect? Your children, you need some direction as far as where your children go, who they stay with, because you know what the default with that is.
The state.
The state, yeah. And you don't want that to happen.
Yeah, there's an assumption that they'll just go with my parents.
Right.
But that isn't guaranteed.
No, and if you say that's what you want, maybe your in-laws want them to go with them. You know, if you have to specify, you know, what your intent is.
You used a phrase a minute ago, your health care, what do you call it? Your health advocate or something? Is that different than your power of attorney?
Well, there are two powers of attorney. There's one for personal affairs and finances and things like that, but the health care power of attorney is durable. So if you become incapacitated, this person can still continue to make decisions for you, and it's very specific. You don't want a general kind of generic power of attorney. You want something that talks about, in this circumstance I want this, in this circumstance I want this. I want to give this person this much room to make these decisions for me.
Because again, that peace of mind, if it's someone that you love who's going to become that durable power of attorney, think about their emotions.
It's really a gift.
Yeah, it is a gift, because otherwise they'd be afraid of, what if I'm making the wrong choice for this person who I love? Is that right?
Right, and if I can add that, you know, I hear oftentimes people say, well, I told my son to do X and they'll do the right thing, or I told my daughter to do X and I know she'll do the right thing. Don't do that to people, because you're just setting up for a dispute.
Okay, so what you think at 40 is different than what you think at 80.
Absolutely.
So if you've lived your life the right way and you've had your affairs drawn up for a long time, is it reasonable to think that you might alter your will and your
I hope so.
Okay.
I hope so.
Is there a rule of thumb of how often you should?
I like to meet with, I always tell people, if something happens and you're not sure, contact me, because I would rather know than not know. But at least every 5 years, like you said, 20 years from now, if you have little kids, they're going to be all grown up. It's going to be a different circumstance. You may have different kinds of priorities in your life. You'll have different assets, so yes, absolutely.
We did focus our conversation this morning on the life part of it,
Right.
the health part of it. But the money part of it is also really big.
Huge.
That will destroy families.
Huge. And as I mentioned to you, I've got two 80-year-olds that are in love after their first spouses passed away, and I think that's wonderful. They're being married this weekend. But imagine the complications there, with assets, with family members. They're bringing a lot of things to the table.
And even though I have a minute left, the internet's gotten us a long way, and DIY is great to a point.
Yeah.
But you need someone like Nancy who can say, in this scenario, this.
Correct.
If scenario A is not applicable, we move to scenario B.
Right.
Right. There are always contingencies.
Right. Exactly. You always want to have a plan B.
So
absolutely.
So let plan A be two things. Write down her information for how you can reach out to her at the office with Nancy Cogar. She's right here in Chattanooga. But she also does have an awful lot of fun, and she has a podcast called...
Oh, yeah. It's called Boomer Time. We just have so much fun, and it's so informative for people. I've been getting so much feedback that people are really learning things about these important issues.
They need to know them, and they can't unless someone tells them. So thank you so much for the conversation.
Absolutely.
Here's where you will find her. So she's on Jordan Drive, 892-2006 is that phone number. You can read about her online, nancycogar.com. Her bio is really fascinating. And then check out her podcast, Boomer Time, with Nancy Cogar. Thank you.
Thank you, Julie.
Have fun at that wedding.
Oh, thanks.